As a quick bit of news, because this always happens, I do the recap and then a few more things spin out. There's a lot of other little news stories, but but I think a big one, or at least one to pay attention to, is the announcement of a new Green Lantern live action series, 10 episode First Order on HBO Max. Let's talk about what that's about. Hey everybody, this is Perch. As an indication of perhaps more synergy going on between Warner Media and ultimately their HBO Max platform, DC. By the way, as an aside, the DC content within HBO Max has been one of the strongest performers within that application, and something that's not lost on Time Warner or Warner Media and AT&T executives. The DC interest is very strong, is what people say, and so the idea of getting additional series greenlit, whether they're original animated pieces or live action. The stuff that really seems to be going really effectively for that platform is that groups that are pitching concepts that are not heavily tied to continuity, things that are fairly self-contained, would make good little kind of 10-ish episode runs. This is what they're after right now, and so the announcement today of a Green Lantern series, which had been at least pushed around for a little while. But this is something that's going to premiere on HBO Max. And we don't have a release date, but at least some of the early news that then was pulled was indicating that we are thinking somewhere late 2021 as a series. So it's not completely an idea. We've gotten a little bit further than that. We have picked basically kind of the studio or the showrunners. This is going to be co-written by Grahame-Smith and the Arrowverse architect Marc Guggenheim. That's the team that's going to be bringing that together, which is either good news for you if you liked Arrow, or bad news if you hated Arrow. Well, it's an indication of what we're going to get, which should be something CW-like with probably a bit more violence, is where it's at. We also don't know if this is going to fully tie in to the Justice League universe that was established by Zack Snyder, or if it's kind of in its own thing. Basically, the approach that has been taken is that we can do things within the multiverse and we can bring it in. DC seems a lot more comfortable than Marvel has and Disney has with just saying, hey, these stories are set in their own universes, and if it makes sense to cross them over, we'll cross them over, and almost use that as a strength to free them up in terms of storytelling possibilities, and also open your door down the road to have people cross over and for these characters to kind of traverse the multiverse and interact. So what is this Green Lantern? What do we know? Well, we have heard that it's really kind of the Green Lantern core, not just Green Lantern. It's going to be labeled Green Lantern, but it's really going to focus on Alan Scott, Kilowog, Guy Gardner, Jessica Cruz, Simon Baz. Interestingly enough, in all the hype of it, it doesn't specifically call out Hal Jordan, but basically a lot of those areas. It is in the quote from HBO Max, DC, Berlanti Productions, and Warner Brothers Television comes a bold new adaptation of the iconic comic book franchise, a saga spanning decades and galaxies. Green Lantern will depict the adventures of a multitude of lanterns, including Guy Gardner, Jessica Cruz, Simon Baz, and Alan Scott, Earth's first Green Lantern, who, true to the comics, is a gay man, and many more. Get to that in a second. The series will also include fan favorites such as Sinestro and Kilowog, and will introduce new heroes to the ranks of the Green Lantern Corps. Well, fortunately, there's a lot of members of the Green Lantern Corps out there, so lots of material to certainly draw from. I know there's some people tearing their hair out right now at the description of Alan Scott, who, true to the comics, is a gay man. That kind of quote, because yes, that is true to the comics, but that's true more recently to the comics. That's true since the New 52 rendition of Alan Scott. This is an area that a lot of people get super pissed about, and it's very much they're very weighted one end or the other. From my perspective, I don't particularly care, and I know that makes people insane. The way I weigh into all this is always like, what happened to Obsidian? You had his son that was a pretty strong gay character very, very early on, and kind of erased him to then depict Alan Scott as a gay man in the Earth 2 comic in the New 52, and then that's kind of the new status quo. But what about some of these other characters you've left behind? That's always where my head goes, is like, hey, you left some characters behind in doing all of this. I'm not as fixated on, is this a new rendition of the character? I mean, the universe has changed quite a lot. I do wish, for the sake of just being honest, I guess, or fair, that it would say, that Alan Scott, who during a recent reboot was revealed as a gay man. I think that would be a more accurate way of. I always hate it when it's like, hey, forget history, because the history does matter. It doesn't mean you have to be bound by it. It doesn't mean that you have to live with it forever and you can never change anything, which is a lot of where people go. I just wish you could balance, like, hey, we acknowledge it was this way before, and we acknowledge that we're doing something new now. And if fans don't like the way it's being done now, okay, I get that, but that becomes, to me, more their problem than this portrayal of it was always this way. Forget what you previously thought you knew. I hate that stuff. Whether it's certainly sexuality, but anything. I don't like this kind of retconning of history where we then forget there was a retcon. It was like the guy at Marvel who was saying, really, was Spider-Man ever married to Mary Jane? I mean, since we undid that in One More Day, I mean, it begs the question. Maybe he just was never married to Mary Jane. It's like, well, that's a dumb statement, because I can go to a comic book in my long box over here, and he's married to Mary Jane. So when you retcon something, you don't erase the past. Anyway, that always irritates me. I get the feeling that I'm kind of alone in that irritation, that most people are irritated for other reasons. But for me, it's always the dismissal of what came before. Not the fact they've changed something. I mean, you change whatever you want, and people are either going to like it or not. But it was never that way. You can't see me, but I'm waving my hands over my face. It was never that way. Forget that stuff just irks me. Anyway, back to the show. Like I said, it is Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, Kyle Rayner were not announced in this. Neither were the Joe Mullen from Far Sector, or Tai Pham, or the girl who's, and I'm spacing on the name, is Green Lantern and Young Justice. But again, it's 10 episodes. It sounds like it's going to be kind of one threaded story, but almost an anthology series where you're looking at different aspects of the universe. And I'm speculating a little bit based on kind of what's printed here, but it sounds like it's almost a done in one kind of adventure each episode, with a underlying thread between all that. Hopefully, they take the step of kind of exploring Sinestro when he was a Green Lantern, and maybe the underlying thread could be his fall from grace. That'd be cool. Definitely love the fact that Guy Gardner is going to get some love. I know I reported, a couple of weeks ago, that Guy Gardner was going to have a much higher prominence in 2021. I think this all goes to it. So, interesting. Like I said, either if you like the Arrowverse, that's good news. If you really hated it, maybe this is bad news. But Grahame-Smith basically pinned Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, worked on the Lego Batman movie, Child's Play, as well as the 2 It films. So I think you can kind of get a feeling for the style that we're in for. But there you go. So brand new 10-episode ongoing Green Lantern series. Given the popularity, it's way too early to count chickens before they're hatched, but given the popularity of of Doom Patrol and some of the things that have been on HBO Max, if they do this even competently well, then it will get renewed for additional seasons. I think HBO Max and Warner Media definitely has an interest in telling a lot of stories with these DC characters, and I think we're going to get, I heard, we're supposed to get a bunch of additional announcements over the next 8 weeks or so of 3 to 4 more ongoing DC series, or 10 episode to 12 episode orders of DC series. We already heard that Doom Patrol Season 3 is coming, and I think we're just going to see more and more of that. So all good news. Very curious to see how it all rolls out. But to you, are you going to watch the new Green Lantern series on HBO Max? Do you care? Is this a Green Lantern you'd want to see? Do you want to see how they portray Guy Gardner and how some of this stuff comes out? Are you super irritated about Alan Scott? Would that prevent you from watching something? Where do you fit in all this? But and more importantly, is Ryan Reynolds going to be involved in some way? Probably not. Anyway, leave a comment below. Let me know how you're thinking about it, how you react to this news, and yeah, like, subscribe, dislike. side like. I don't know if that's an option. I don't think so. Anyway, most importantly, thanks for listening.